The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, have conducted one of the most complex operations in recent years on the California-Mexico border. For 12 months, investigators have been gathering evidence of an underground tunnel system that was used to move illegal substances across the state border on a large scale. Today, we'll tell you how agents got to this network and what they discovered during the raid. The investigation focused on a group that controlled one of the most complex smuggling routes between Tijuana and San Diego County. According to investigators, the organization had been building underground infrastructure for years, disguising entrances and exits under legal facilities. The key point turned out to be an old cemetery in the border area, where an extensive system of tunnels was hidden under the crypts and tombstones. The investigation found that the decisions to build this network were made by a narrow circle of organizers who considered the place an ideal shelter due to its inviolability and low attention from patrols. The cemetery functioned as an ordinary burial ground, which further reduced the suspicions of law enforcement agencies. Agents discovered that some of the crypts had been specially purchased through front persons precisely to provide access to underground communications. The cartel's scheme of operation was based on precise logistics and strict conspiracy. The drugs were delivered to the entry point on the Mexican side of the border, where specially trained couriers loaded them into underground trolleys on rails. The tunnels were laid at a depth of 4 to 12 meters, equipped with a ventilation system, electric lighting, and reinforced walls to prevent collapses. The level of engineering was impressive, even to experienced specialists. The walls were reinforced with metal beams, the floor was concrete, and the ceiling was equipped with motion sensors and surveillance cameras. The cargo was transported underground for a distance of more than 900 meters, entering the U.S. territory through disguised hatches under the crypts of the cemetery. Then the goods were distributed between local warehouses, from where they were delivered to distributors in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and other cities on the West Coast. A parallel financial structure operated. Money was laundered through a network of auto repair shops, restaurants, construction companies, and small transport firms, spreading its footprint across the financial systems of both countries. Investigators found that some of the funds were reinvested in expanding the tunnel network and purchasing new equipment. The operation began after a series of anonymous tips about suspicious activity near the old cemetery. Agents set up covert surveillance using night vision cameras and drones with thermal imaging cameras. For weeks, regular visits by small groups of people at night were recorded, arriving in inconspicuous cars without license plates or with fake registration data. Meanwhile, analysts studied the financial flows of the suspect companies, identifying anomalies in reporting and transfers between accounts in the United States and offshore zones. In parallel, FBI agents introduced an informant into the organization's environment, which allowed them to obtain critical information about the tunnel structure and delivery schedule. Meanwhile, technicians analyzed seismic activity in the cemetery area, trying to determine the exact location of underground cavities. Geolocation data confirmed the presence of large-scale voids underground, which did not correspond to the natural geological formations of the region. Once all the evidence was gathered, investigators obtained search and seizure warrants, preparing a synchronized operation on both sides of the border. The planning took 3 weeks, during which the actions of American and Mexican units were coordinated. The raids began simultaneously at 9 locations on both sides of the border. FBI and DEA special forces surrounded the cemetery, cutting off all possible escape routes and setting up checkpoints on nearby roads. Meanwhile, Mexican federal agents blocked off entrances on the southern side of the border, conducting parallel raids on private homes and warehouses associated with the organization. The operatives, in full tactical gear, entered through the main entrance to a tunnel discovered under an old mausoleum on the western side of the cemetery. The descent led to a wide corridor with concrete walls and a rail system for transporting cargo. The team then moved cautiously, checking every branch and side passage. In some sections, they found storage niches filled with packaged shipments of goods ready to be moved. In parallel, agents discovered a communication system based on radio stations and closed channels, which allowed for coordination of movement between entry and exit points. Meanwhile, another group of operatives examined additional branches that led to emergency exits disguised as ventilation shafts and technical hatches. In the central chamber of the tunnel, they found a control room with monitors that broadcast images from surveillance cameras installed along the entire length of the underground network. They also found supply logs written in a coded language and electronic devices for coordination with other cartel cells. During the searches, law enforcement officers seized more than 2.5 tons of methamphetamine, 900 kilograms of cocaine, and 400 kilograms of heroin. The total value of the detected substances is estimated at $230 million on the retail market. In addition to the drugs, $15 million in cash were found in the tunnels, packed in waterproof containers and metal chests. Meanwhile, 42 firearms were seized in the above-ground warehouses, including automatic rifles, pistols with silencers, shotguns, and several grenade launchers. At the same time, electronic equipment for coordinating deliveries was discovered. Laptops, encrypted phones, GPS trackers, and satellite communicators. According to preliminary estimates, the network provided for the movement of goods worth more than $750 million each year. 41 members of the organization were arrested, including tunnel engineers, security guards, couriers, coordinators on both sides of the border, and financiers responsible for money laundering. The investigation identified 5 individuals believed to be the main organizers of the scheme, including 2 Mexican citizens and 3 United States citizens. Meanwhile, agents discovered documents indicating the organization's ties to other cartels operating in the states of Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico. The suspects are charged with participating in a transnational criminal organization, smuggling controlled substances, money laundering, illegal possession of weapons, and immigration violations. If convicted, they face between 25 and 50 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California said the case will be treated as a priority due to the scale of the operation and the international nature of the criminal activity. Investigators emphasize that this is just one episode in a long fight against cartels that are adapting to new methods of border control, using engineering solutions and underground infrastructure to bypass traditional security systems. Prosecutors are also considering the possibility of confiscating real estate and financial assets associated with the suspects, which could add millions of dollars in additional seized assets to the case. FBI officials say the operation was the result of close interagency coordination between U.S. and Mexican law enforcement agencies. Each such raid not only removes large amounts of illicit drugs from circulation, but also disrupts the supply chains that fuel violence and corruption on both sides of the border. The Drug Enforcement Administration said that analysis of seized electronic devices and financial documents is already providing new leads on other segments of the cartel. The investigation is ongoing, and investigators do not rule out additional arrests in the coming weeks. In parallel, agents are investigating the possible existence of similar tunnel systems in other border regions, using the data obtained to map the underground infrastructure. We will continue to monitor the development of this case and report on new details as they are released by the investigative authorities. Technical experts have begun detailed mapping of the tunnel network, revealing a level of complexity that exceeded previous estimates. The system included not one main tunnel, but a whole web of interconnected corridors with 5 main branches and numerous auxiliary branches. The total length of underground communications exceeded 3 kilometers, making this network one of the largest ever discovered on the U.S.-Mexico border. Engineers determined that the construction of such a system would have taken at least 2 years and required the involvement of professional mining engineers with experience in underground work. In parallel, investigators discovered that the cartel used specialized drilling equipment that was illegally imported from China through Mexican ports under the guise of equipment for the construction of water supply systems. Analysis of the seized documents revealed a detailed structure of the organization. The cartel divided functions between separate cells, each of which was responsible for a specific segment of the operation, and did not have complete information about the other links. The first group was directly involved in the construction and maintenance of the tunnels, ensuring the power supply, ventilation, and technical serviceability of the rail systems. The second was responsible for logistics on the Mexican side, coordinating the supply of goods from the southern states to the points of entry. The third managed distribution on American territory, organizing transportation to warehouses and further transfer to distributors. The fourth group specialized in financial transactions, laundering money through a network of shell companies and cryptocurrency exchanges. Meanwhile, the fifth was involved in security, including hiring armed guards, installing surveillance systems, and collecting intelligence on the activities of law enforcement agencies. The digital trail proved particularly valuable to the investigation. The seized hard drives contained encrypted databases with detailed records of every shipment for the past 18 months. The data included dates, quantities, names of couriers and coordinators, and financial transactions down to the cent. FBI cryptographers worked for 3 days to decipher the information, using specialized software and supercomputer power. The results confirmed that an average of 400 kilograms of methamphetamine, 200 kilograms of cocaine, and 100 kilograms of heroin were moving through the tunnel system each month. In parallel, experts discovered correspondence between the organizers, which discussed plans to expand the network and build additional tunnels in the Nogales and El Paso areas. Meanwhile, analysis of GPS data from the seized devices identified more than 40 addresses of warehouses, safe houses, and transfer points in 6 states. The interrogations of the detainees began to bear fruit. Several lower-level participants agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for reduced charges. Their testimony confirmed that the organization had ties to three major Mexican cartels that used the tunnel network on a commercial basis, paying a fixed amount for each delivery. The informants also described a security system that included bribing individual border guards, local police, and even municipal officials on both sides of the border. Investigators obtained the names of 12 officials suspected of collaborating with the cartel and receiving regular payments for providing information about planned inspections and raids. In parallel, the agents established that some of the cartel's money was invested in the purchase of legal businesses, including several restaurants, car washes, and small hotels that were used as meeting points and to transmit instructions. International coordination proved critical to the success of the operation. Mexican federal police conducted simultaneous raids in Tijuana, Mexico City, and Guadalajara, arresting 18 more individuals associated with the organization. Among those arrested were two high-ranking members of the Sinaloa cartel who coordinated shipments through the tunnel system. Meanwhile, the Canadian Mounted Police conducted searches in Vancouver and Toronto, revealing links between the criminal network and Asian triads, who were the ultimate buyers of some of the methamphetamine. European law enforcement agencies also joined the investigation, providing data on financial transactions through banks in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Cyprus. In parallel, Interpol issued red notices for 15 individuals who were in hiding and may be outside North America. A coordination center in Washington worked around the clock to ensure the exchange of information between all agencies involved. The impact of the operation on the cartels was felt almost immediately. DEA analysts recorded a sharp increase in the price of methamphetamine in California, Nevada, and Arizona in the week after the raid, indicating a serious disruption of the supply chain. At the same time, reports of conflicts between smaller groups trying to fill the vacuum and redistribute sales territories increased. Meanwhile, informants reported panic meetings among the leadership of other cartels, who urgently reviewed their routes and transportation methods. Investigators received information that several groups had suspended operations on the California border, reorienting themselves to sea routes across the Pacific Ocean or land routes through Texas. In parallel, technical experts determined that the cartel had invested more than $8 million in the construction and equipment of the tunnel system, making its destruction a serious financial blow to the organization. Engineering analysis revealed details that amazed even experienced specialists. The tunnels were equipped with an automatic climate control system that maintained the optimal temperature and humidity to prevent spoilage of goods. The lighting was powered by autonomous generators with backup batteries capable of operating for 48 hours in the event of a power outage. The rail system included electric winches to move the trolleys, which allowed the transport of up to 300 kilograms of cargo in one trip. In parallel, investigators discovered emergency exits disguised as sewer hatches and ventilation shafts, which provided the possibility of evacuation in the event of law enforcement officers discovering the tunnel. Meanwhile, experts established that the walls and ceiling were reinforced using technology used in professional mining, which indicated the involvement of qualified engineers with experience working in mines or in the construction of subways. Federal prosecutors have begun preparations for what promises to be one of the largest drug cartel trials in history. The indictment is more than 200 pages long and includes a detailed description of the organization's activities, management structure, financial schemes, and specific episodes of crimes. The prosecution plans to call more than 100 witnesses, including undercover agents, technical experts, financial analysts, and cooperating defendants. In parallel, motions are being prepared to confiscate all property acquired with criminal proceeds, including real estate, cars, bank accounts, and cryptocurrency assets. According to preliminary estimates, the total value of the assets subject to confiscation may exceed $40 million. Meanwhile, the defendants' lawyers have already announced their intention to challenge the legality of the searches and wiretaps, which promises a long legal battle in federal courts. DEA officials stressed the strategic importance of the operation for the overall fight against drug trafficking. The destruction of the tunnel network not only blocks one of the main supply routes, but also demonstrates to the cartels that no infrastructure, even the most complex, will go unnoticed. The agency also announced increased funding for programs to detect underground tunnels, including the purchase of new seismic equipment and ground-penetrating radar to scan border areas. In parallel, the FBI is expanding its network of informants in border regions, offering rewards for information about suspicious construction activity or unusual movements of equipment. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security has launched a pilot program to use artificial intelligence to analyze satellite imagery and automatically detect signs of underground construction along the entire southern border. We continue to monitor this case. Grupos investigators, together with geologists and civil engineers, conducted a complete inventory of the tunnel system, creating a three-dimensional digital model of the entire network. Laser rangefinder and ground-penetrating radar scans revealed additional cavities that even the arrested members of the organization were unaware of. In one of these hidden chambers, an archive of paper documents was found that the cartel kept as a backup for electronic records. The documentation included detailed drawings of the tunnels, security shift schedules, lists of bribed officials with payment amounts, and even photographs of key participants at meetings. In parallel, experts discovered an emergency flooding system that was to be activated in the event of law enforcement discovering the tunnel, to destroy evidence and make it impossible to use the network further. Pumps and water pipes were connected to underground aquifers and could fill the main corridors in a matter of minutes. The financial investigation revealed the scale of money laundering, which significantly exceeded initial estimates. Analysts found that the organization used a complex multi-level system that included not only traditional shell companies, but also modern fintech solutions. Part of the funds was converted into cryptocurrency through a network of anonymous exchangers, after which it was transferred to digital wallets registered in countries with soft regulation. From there, the money was returned to the traditional financial system through the purchase of real estate, antiques, and works of art at international auctions. Investigators found that over the past 3 years, at least $280 million had been laundered in this way. Meanwhile, experts discovered connections with official exchange offices in 5 Latin American countries, the owners of which deliberately ignored procedures for checking clients and sources of origin of funds. In parallel, the investigation uncovered a network of law firms and accountants who provided professional services to optimize financial schemes and create offshore structures for the cartel. The interrogations continued to provide new information about the geography of the cartel's operations. One of the coordinators, who agreed to cooperate fully, told about plans to build 3 more tunnel systems on the border between Arizona and the Mexican state of Sonora. According to him, the design had already been completed, and preparatory work was to begin within 2 months. This information allowed agents to conduct preemptive raids and identify warehouses with construction equipment, including drilling rigs, ventilation systems, and metal structures for strengthening walls. In parallel, another witness provided a detailed diagram of a corruption network that included 23 officials in the United States and Mexico. Among them were employees of the Customs Service, Border Patrol, local police, and even a federal district attorney who, in return for a reward, provided advance information about planned operations. Meanwhile, investigators found that the total amount of bribes paid to these individuals over the past 2 years exceeded $8 million. International cooperation has yielded additional results. Chinese law enforcement authorities have detained the owner of a company that supplied tunnel drilling equipment and provided access to documentation on all agreements with Mexican contractors. This information has helped identify several other organizations that could potentially use similar equipment for similar purposes. In parallel, Spanish police have conducted searches in Barcelona and Madrid, detaining 3 individuals who were involved in legalizing drug money through investments in real estate on the Mediterranean coast. Meanwhile, the Australian Federal Police have provided information on the cartel's attempt to establish methamphetamine supply channels to the Asia-Pacific region through a network of intermediaries in Sydney and Melbourne. The Coordination Center has combined all the information received, creating the most complete picture of the organization's transnational activities to date. In parallel, Interpol initiated a joint operation involving law enforcement agencies from 19 countries to simultaneously strike all identified cells of the network. Technical examination of the seized drugs revealed disturbing details about the cartel's production capacity. Chemical analysis of the methamphetamine showed a level of purity and stability of the composition that is only possible with the use of industrial equipment and qualified chemists. Experts established that the production was carried out using modified technology that allowed for a higher quality product at lower costs of precursors. This indicated that the cartel had access to modern scientific developments, and perhaps even the involvement of specialists with a chemical education who previously worked in the legal pharmaceutical industry. In parallel, analysis of the cocaine showed that it came from 3 different regions of Colombia, which confirmed the organization's links to multiple production sources and indicated the network's role as a large distributor, rather than just a transporter for a single supplier. Meanwhile, an examination of the heroin found that part of the batch was made from opium poppies of Mexican origin, while the other part came from Afghanistan via a complex route through the Middle East and West Africa. The impact of the operation on local communities has been mixed. On the one hand, residents of border areas have expressed relief at the elimination of a large criminal network that had operated in their area for years. Local authorities have reported a decrease in violence, and the disappearance of suspects who had previously regularly appeared in the vicinity of the cemetery. At the same time, residents have expressed hope for an improvement in the economic situation, as the cartel's presence has negatively affected local businesses and deterred investors. On the other hand, some families have found themselves in a difficult situation after the detention of their members who worked for the cartel, often without realizing the full picture of criminal activity or being forced out of economic necessity. Meanwhile, human rights organizations have drawn attention to the need for social programs for communities where cartels traditionally find recruits due to the lack of legal opportunities for earning a living. In parallel, experts have emphasized the importance of economic development of border regions as a long-term strategy to counter the influence of organized crime. Law enforcement officials held a series of press briefings to demonstrate the scale of the operation and the evidence seized. Specially organized tours showed journalists some of the seized drugs, weapons, and cash, as well as video footage from surveillance cameras installed in the tunnels. Drawings of the underground system and photographs of the equipment used to build and operate it were also released. The FBI Chief of Staff highlighted the unprecedented level of interagency and international coordination that made the operation a success. The DEA representative emphasized that the operation demonstrates a new, effective model for combating transnational organized crime, combining traditional operational methods with modern intelligence and analysis technologies. Meanwhile, the district attorney announced that this was just the beginning of a legal process that would last for months and aimed not only at punishing the perpetrators, but also at maximizing the confiscation of assets to compensate for the damage done to society. The long-term consequences of the operation are already beginning to manifest themselves in changing cartels' strategies. Analysts note an increase in criminal organizations' interest in maritime routes and the use of drones to transport small consignments across borders. In parallel, there has been an increase in attempts to use legal cargo flows through official checkpoints with more sophisticated methods of disguising the goods. Investigators also record an increase in the activity of cartels in the direction of diversifying criminal activities, including expanding into the areas of cybercrime, human trafficking, and illegal mining. Meanwhile, law enforcement agencies are adapting their methods of work, investing in new detection and prevention technologies, including artificial intelligence systems for predicting the behavior of criminal networks and automatically analyzing huge data sets. In parallel, international cooperation is expanding through the creation of joint analytical centers and the exchange of liaison officers between agencies of different countries. The final phase of the investigation focused on the highest levels of the cartel's leadership. Using data from seized devices and testimony from cooperating defendants, investigators identified 6 individuals who were at the top of the organization and made strategic decisions. 3 of them are already in custody, 2 more are hiding in Mexico under the protection of local cartels, and 1 is believed to have left for Central America. International arrest warrants have been issued, and a reward of $5 million has been offered for information on the whereabouts of the fugitives. Negotiations are underway with governments in the region to extradite the detainees and cooperate in finding those who are in hiding. In the meantime, prosecutors are preparing additional charges against the organization's leaders, including articles of management of a criminal enterprise and ordering the murders of competitors and witnesses, which significantly increase the potential sentences. Federal agencies announced the closure of the tunnel network and its complete destruction. Engineering units carried out a controlled backfilling of all corridors with a special concrete solution, which makes it impossible to further use or restore the system. In parallel, permanent observation posts and seismic sensors were installed on the surface, which will automatically respond to any underground activity within a radius of several kilometers. The cemetery territory was taken under increased control, and all crypts and mausoleums were checked for hidden entrances. In the meantime, a monitoring program was launched for other cemeteries and historical sites along the border that could potentially be used in a similar way. Representatives of the Department of Homeland Security emphasized that the operation closed one of the most dangerous drug supply channels, which claimed the lives of thousands of Americans every year due to overdoses of high-quality synthetic substances. The operation, codenamed Silent Dungeon, went down in history as one of the most successful joint actions in the fight against transnational organized crime. 59 people were arrested, more than $230 million worth of drugs were seized, $63 million in cash and assets were seized, and a complex underground infrastructure worth more than $8 million was destroyed. In parallel, corruption cases against 23 officials were discovered and brought to justice. An international money laundering network operating in 13 countries was uncovered, and intelligence on the activities of other cartels was obtained, which is already being used in new investigations. Representatives of the FBI and DEA emphasized that the success of the operation was possible due to close coordination between agencies, the use of modern intelligence and analysis technologies, as well as international cooperation, which made it possible to strike simultaneously at all links of the criminal network. This demonstrates that even the most sophisticated and well-organized criminal structures cannot withstand the combined efforts of law enforcement agencies, which work professionally, purposefully, and using all available resources. The investigation is officially ongoing, as investigators continue to work out new leads and prepare for trials that will determine the final fate of all participants in this large-scale criminal operation.